I imagine her to have curly hair like me and a similar skin color.
I remember my grandmother saying to me, I don't care what they tell you in school, Cleopatra was black.
Right.
What can I say, dear viewer? Today marks the day in which the entire world over must finally take off their white-tinted glasses and come together to accept the fact that Cleopatra was black. That according to the whitewashed pages of history, somewhere along the way, a black queen was lost, and that the noses on the faces of the sphinxes were wholesale removed in Michael Jackson-like fashion, just to hide what race their noses actually belonged to. A worldwide effort to hide what could imply who should really get credit in the pages of history for the Sphinx's construction, along with the pyramids themselves, of course, because clearly promoting a stereotype that everyone with large noses is exclusively black is the right thing to do if it means a large pile of rocks gets credit where credit is due, thus making the noses removal imperative to keep the pages of history as least diverse as possible. Damn the history books, and damn what's taught in school. According to Jada Pinkett Smith, this is what the Illuminati has been trying to keep secret from the world, keeping this information stored far away from the world's eyes, deep within the vaults of Area 51, somewhere within the hard drive of Hunter Biden's laptop, directly next to the list of Epstein's clients. It's a secret like this that can only be told by the bravest of us all. And finally, her voice and the truth to history itself has been heard. You know what they say, tell a lie long enough, and sooner or later, more and more gullible people will inevitably start to believe it. Over time, the larger that group gets, the more this lie spreads as it's taught to their children, later being spread amongst their friends as they grow up, seeping its roots further and further into the community, actually creating a substantial amount of people that firmly believe it to the extent that it's a genuine hill they'd be willing to die on, all cause mommy and her mommy before her said so. Wishful thinking passed down from generation to generation doesn't change the pages of history itself, but what it can and ultimately has done is change a certain portion of history that's being told and passed down to certain people. With this wishful thinking spreading to such a far extent, it makes perfect sense as to how Jada could genuinely talk herself into producing a piece, finally telling her story of the world she's been taught since her childhood, knowing full well how many in her own community have also been fed this wishful thinking growing up. She likely felt she'd received genuine praise for creating this piece, since it's only an effort to further spread what she actually believes to be the truth. When your inner circle praises your thoughts on this topic, it creates an echo chamber of support of the same idea without a reality's dose of criticism. And well, Cleopatra's Misinformation series is now officially coming to Netflix as a result. And par for the course, anyone rightfully so offended at this racially charged issue is immediately being labeled as part of the problem that Jada is trying to highlight. That is, the world over collectively trying to whitewash Cleopatra and the construction of the pyramids and sphinxes themselves. Which really is baffling, considering just how pro-slavery a civilization like that had to be in order to create such heavy monuments in the first place. Proudly tying your history to slave owners while simultaneously condemning white people for their history being tied to slave owners? No, the irony isn't lost on me. But if Jada wants to try that hard to get her own self-proclaimed ancestors cancelled, then who would I be to stop her? Outside of the reasons I just highlighted, I can only think of one other reason why Jada would possibly come to the conclusion that she would receive praise for this abomination she's created. You see, in Hollywood's inner circles, it's no secret that race-swapping characters is fully promoted by those with a certain political preference. They know very well that race-swapping characters is by no means a two-way street, yet somehow openly praise it as being in the name of diversity. This is what has paved the way for every white fictional character to exist, to be openly targeted as eligible for race swapping. If they're white, it's free real estate. If the character was originally openly portrayed as white, male, or straight, then all three of these oppressive characteristics are now completely flexible and perfect for being changed. The modern message that white means racist, straight means homophobic, and that men means sexist has given Hollywood no one's permission to rewrite any beloved characters that happen to possess any of these traits. When straight white men are labeled the villains of the world, their natural suitors straight white women are the next domino to fall for supporting these evil men in the first place. So additionally, these straight white female characters can just as easily be replaced. Painting the characteristics of whiteness and being straight as oppressive and morally reprehensible means that these characters aren't really being replaced as an incentive for representation or to meet a certain diversity quota, but rather they're being replaced because each character that's straight, white, or male is simply a representative of an oppressive obstacle to overcome. Hollywood repeatedly doing this means regardless of gender, any already existing fictional character who matches these everyday white people traits is officially eligible for a long overdue correction in Hollywood's eyes. It's due to this that race-swapping characters became exclusively a one-way street. If one were to replace a pre-existing, more diverse character, why then, you'd be treading on sacred ground now, wouldn't you? Because then, you'd be assigning a representative of all that's good in the world as of 2023, the traits that are ultimately being labeled as evil, switching the strongest, bravest, and most diverse characters for people whose skin color represents the unforgivable sins of past generations. You see, switching the strongest, bravest, and most diverse characters would in their eyes be a crime, not an improvement, making it a highly offensive thing to even suggest in the first place, ensuring it'll essentially never happen. Why? Because that would be erasing something too dear and good to the world right now, apparently. Which is crazy to think about, because you want to know what else was once dear and good to the world at one point? The very characters you're trying to replace, pasty skin and all, they needed no fixing. They should be treated just as sacred and off limits as every more diverse character of today is currently being treated. The rule concerning these things should be simple. You want more diversity? Make new characters. Don't take the rights to an old IP, have your way with it, and tell the original fans that they're homophobic, racist, and sexist for loving the character you opted to rewrite as someone else entirely. Just like the person's identity changes when they're changed to a different race, so do these characters. Yes, race alone can change an entire character, the same way it changes people in our history books. Imagine we lived in a world where Obama wasn't just half white, but instead was Ellen DeGeneres level white. Imagine a world where Martin Luther King was white, where Oprah was white, if Michael Jordan or LeBron James was white. How about Tiger Woods, or Usain Bolt, Kanye West, Dave Chappelle, Kevin Hart, hell, even Snoop Dogg? All famous, but see what it does to their identity when that one detail is changed? How much would that affect their fame, their legacy, who they are, what they say, do, believe, talk about, or fight for? Their whole perspective on life. All that gets adjusted to some degree when something like race gets swapped. It's the same for gender and sexual orientation. With just a single one of those things being changed, the character itself becomes someone else, similar at best, but fundamentally different all at the same time. Hollywood doing its best to change exclusively white characters in this way isn't its way of paying respect to these characters. It's the way of fixing them. With each one that's replaced, it's another outdated, oppressive white obstacle of the past finally being overcome and, according to Twitter activists, rightfully so replaced. It's something to be celebrated in their minds, but hated and condemned if ever one of their own characters faces such a threat. The same people who supported the race swapping of Shaggy, Daphne, and Velma, or The Little Mermaid, Tinkerbell, and Peter Pan, and even the genders of the Lost Boys. Thanks to Jada Pinkett Smith, all of them will at least have something new to wank over. Cause remember, to Jada, Hollywood, and the Twitter activists, if it's white, nothing is sacred. But no matter what, no matter how many characters or historical figures they attempt to change on screen, in real life, that'll never change the truth. Right about now, Jada and anyone who supports the race swapping of a real historical person, just because it makes them feel better since it pushes their agenda, is currently looking at the truth and considering all the people that they're willing to offend by praising and repeating this selective doctoring of history as though it's the hill they're willing to die on. Well, for me at least, considering Cleopatra has and always will be Greek, A certain quote comes to mind when it comes to people like Jada Pinkett Smith and anyone who supports this garbage. If the truth shall kill them, let them die. Anyways, that's all I've got for today. But I hope you guys liked this video on this absolutely absurd topic. So feel free to comment down below and let me know what movie, trailer, or crazy topic you'd like me to review next. Whether it's good, or whether it's something as blatantly disrespectful to an entire people's heritage and history as this utter nonsense is, remember, I'll fucking judge.
Reality is that the cartoon was made 85 years ago, and therefore it's extremely dated when it comes to the ideas of women being in roles of power and what a woman is fit for in the world.
No, not this speech again.
Shut up.
And so when we came to reimagining the actual role of Snow White, it became about the fairest of them all, meaning who is the most just and who can become a fantastic leader. And the reality is, Snow White has to learn a lot of lessons about coming into her own power before she can come into power over a kingdom.
If you don't have anything smart to say, zip it.
Also, the fact that she's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's the proactive one, and she's the one who set the terms, is what makes it so relevant to where we are today.
You coming to LA anytime soon?
Yeah, probably not for a minute. I got some things I gotta take care of.